This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Hello, Place to Be Nation. Welcome back to Totally Rank. It is time for us to get into our next installment of this lovely music series hosted by yours truly, Scott Grimes. If you've been following along, you'll know that we are going to be tackling the wonderful year of 1985 today. I'm not sure we're going to be talking about Bowling for Soup, but clearly this is a year that was important for Bowling for Soup, and I'm sure for a lot of other people, particularly the listeners here. So we're going to go ahead and count down our top 10 songs from 1985. Obviously, to do that, I need to bring in someone else because nobody wants to listen to just me talk about these, and I like to have these conversations. So my guest for 1985 is an individual that you may or may not have heard on other podcasts before. If you have, then you know he's awesome. If you haven't, then prepare to be amazed. My guest for 1985 is Trevor Hogg. Trevor, how's it going, man?
What is up? Yeah, I was wondering if Bowling for Soup would get a nod early. We got to get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Man, that was a jam. I'm talking about one hit wonder, and that was like the ultimate one hit wonder. But yeah, I am super excited to be here. When you put out the call for some guests, I'm like, 1980s music is my jam. I love this stuff. I was not alive for any of it, but somehow it is my favorite decade of music, bar none. So this is a real privilege. I'm excited to get into this with you.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for answering the call. And yeah, I love your enthusiasm. It's the same way for me. It's the best genre, the best decade of music, the most eclectic. And I knew that before I started this, but now I have even just so much more appreciation having gone through the first half of the decade and just remembered so many amazing songs and trends that were kind of going on. And we're getting into the mid 80s now, which I found, making this list was a little bit less, I feel like we're getting a little bit out of new wave, right? It's not as new wave heavy, which definitely I think the early part of the decade, there were a lot of new waves on our various lists. Now I think it's getting more mainstream. Obviously we haven't got there yet, but we're right on the cusp of, hair metal. And a lot of that. So, 85 was interesting to me, putting this list together. I actually think it's my weakest list so far.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's a little bit top heavy, where I think my other lists so far have been a little bit more consistent through and through. Like my 8 could have been my 2 on some of my other lists, whereas I think my top 4 or 5 are stronger, and then it kind of drops off a little bit, which is interesting because when I started this podcast, I was like, I always think of 1985 as like this banner year. I knew 84 was, but I always think of 85 as sort of this banner year. And now I'm looking at it and thinking, I feel like 85 is a little bit weak. And I think it's like a transition year from like new wave and from Michael Jackson and Springsteen and Prince into, more of the hair metal and more of some of the artists of the late 80s that really get started. So, but enough from me. Tell me just more in general about, the genesis of your list and where you were drawing that from. Did you go with popularity? Did you go with kind of your personal preferences? I always, like to know how everyone sort of curated their lists.
Yeah, I think it starts with a cursory look at just like, okay, what were the top Billboard songs of the year? I'm not going to go that deep, like all these deep cuts of like unknown artists. I'm a pop boy, mainstream for the most part. So start with that list, and then curate that list down to a list of 30, 35 songs. I'm like, these are potentials. And so from that list, it's mostly just how am I feeling about it? I try to have a wide variety of genre represented. I don't want to just be one. I want it in this kind of list. I want it to be reflective of what I really feel. But at the same time, I want to give a sense of the whole musical landscape of 1985, at least in the pop genres. And so, yeah, it was a brutal decision for me, whittling this thing down from like 15 to 10. before that, it's like there's a bunch of songs that are okay, but anywhere in those last few uh, were a very tough call. But I largely agree with you. I'm glad we have the same sort of feeling and this sort of being a weaker year. Or I think I like that you said top heavy, because I do think there are some like we'll get into, but some like quintessential '80s songs in this year that I
Yeah.
love. That um, and then the last half of the list are songs that I like. I genuinely like, but I think there will be other years that would be, like you said, a little more difficult.
Yeah, and it was again other year, like just looking back at some, some of my lists from like 84, 83. It's a lot of Wham, it's a lot of Michael Jackson. There's a lot of for me like Pat Benatar, Journey. Just a lot of those big, just quintessential, memorable songs. And this year definitely has those,
Mhm.
but I think 1985. What I'm realizing is I think suffers from the hangover of the Thriller album
Hmm.
and the hangover
Interesting.
of Born in the USA and some of the other like big albums from 83, 84, where those artists were taking a break.
Hmm.
That's kind of, and so they weren't really on the charts as much, so they don't qualify for this year. And so I think it kind of suffers from a little bit of that hangover is what I kind of realized.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil my list, but there are a couple big name artists who released music in this year.
Oh yeah.
And so they're like we have some of our mainstays still making music. Whether or not they make our list, we'll see. But I mean, I'll give just a little bit of teaser. My favorite album of the 1980s, I think one of the most important albums of 1980s music, uh, is in 1985. And we'll get to it as spoiler alert. I have one or two songs on my list from that album. Uh, so I think, though I agree with you that it's a bit of a weaker year, I still have some sentimentality for it because.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm excited to walk through it.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm glad you teed that up because now I'm really anxious to hear what that album is. So, yeah, let's just get into it then. Guest always goes first, so drop us your number 10.
Okay, and I'm pumped for this. Okay, so my number 10 is scraped onto my list. There were a lot of reasons why I could have left it off, but at the end of the day, this might be my biggest guilty pleasure. I'm starting off the list with a guilty pleasure song, and it is "We Built This City" by Starship. We built this city
Yeah,
by Starship.
honorable mention for me for sure.
Yeah,
Yep, definitely.
it is. I mean, it's just such a fun song to listen to. Uh, I can't catchy chorus. I think so. What keeps it from going higher is that the lyrics are pretty nonsensical a lot of the times. The lyrics, I mean, are famously. I think I saw there were a few lists of like in the 2000s of the worst songs of the 80s, and this one was the voted the worst song of the 80s because it's simultaneously a song with lyrics about like the decline of music, and then everything's just turning into like radio pop stuff. And then simultaneously, this song is such a radio friendly pop arena rock song. So it is such an interest. But I think that's part of its charm is that it's giving this sort of message in the exact sort of thing it's trying to take down.
Yeah.
Uh, some of the lyrics are don't make sense. Marconi plays the mamba. Uh, like, what are you saying? I think what it is they're just trying to make a rhyme. And so you do what you have to
Yeah.
do. But man, I think one thing I love about this song also is there's that interstitial of the radio announcer from San Francisco. There's just no other song that does that. So I think that makes it unique, and it's a guilty pleasure for me to sing. We built this city on rock and roll. That's my number 10. We built this city.
Yeah. It is. It's a fun song. Like it's one of those songs that like if if someone plays it on a jukebox or if you hear it, like, I feel like you get a little grin, right? You're kind of like, oh yeah, I remember this song. Like this is a lot of fun and it's just a fun listen. It's, again, yeah, like you said, don't over analyze the lyrics. Don't really, this isn't a song you're gonna like break down, because it's not going to make any sense, but it's a song that's fun. And I think, you know, it was interesting for, Starship, a band that had been around for, a little bit and had different iterations and things like that.
Hmm.
Kind of brought them back into prominence a little bit. So I like the song. I like it a lot. Yeah, it's kind of like what you said with your list is, your top songs are great and then the bottom half is good. Like this is a good song. This is a
Yeah,
good song.
it's not
I agree with you.
it's not breaking any ground. It's pretty just inoffensive, but yeah, you like listening to it. Uh, Even if some people think it's the worst song of the 80s. I don't think so, obviously.
I can't. I mean, that's just from doing this podcast. I can tell you that there's no way this is the worst song of the '80s. Like, there's no chance.
That's gonna be your next series after top songs of the
The
80s is
worst.
worst songs. No.
Well, I know I've got one here that I can get away with it. This will be my number one, or would it be my number 10 worst? I'm not really sure how that would work. That's a great start. That's a good way to kick off your list. I similarly kicked off my list with a song that I just think is a lot of fun and a song that is just a joy to listen to. I think it's a song that is universally known. I think it's a song that everyone can enjoy from like your grandparents down to your children because of how fun it is. And just how easy it is to sing to. And again, not a song that you're going to really analyze and say like, this is, musically amazing or lyrically great, but it's so much fun and it's been around forever. And I don't think it's ever going to go anywhere. My number 10 is Walking on Sunshine.
Yeah, not on my list.
Yeah, Katrina and the Waves. Again, like you hear the song everywhere. This is at sports shows, it's in commercials, it's in movies. Like the staying power of this song has been incredible. I actually think it probably has more life now and more credibility and popularity now than it did in 1985. I think it's a song that really just got a second wind, thanks to commercials and thanks to movies and things like that. I remember hearing this a lot as a kid in like movies and TV shows and commercials from the 90s and then into the 2000s. And it's just, I feel like it's been around ever since. Just a fun family song, put it on in a road trip in the car and everybody can sing along and it's got a great message and it's very positive and I think that it just works. And so it's a fun song and I just wanted to start my list off in kind of a fun, whimsical way.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, I love this already because it was not near my top 10. It was probably about 20 for me. So
Yeah.
I love that. I love that already. Our lists are different. I agree with you. Fun song, happy song. It's not going to move the needle in terms of advancing any sort of like political message or
Yeah.
social thing, but you need those songs. You need those songs. I think the thing I can contribute to your number 10 is that this band, Katrina and the Waves, would later go on a decade later to win the Eurovision Song Contest with a song called Love Will Shine a Light. So like I don't know if you consider them a one-hit wonder or a couple hits, but
Yeah.
they popped up again over a decade later to win this song contest. So uh, that's honestly what I know them for as a big Eurovision fan. So that's fun.
Yeah, and hey, good for them, and they're still getting royalties from Walking on Sunshine because that still plays everywhere.
It's
So yeah,
everywhere.
so good for them.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's my 10. Obviously, as we're going, if one of us has a song that's higher on the other person's list, we can make that known and we can wait
for
and
sure.
talk about it. But so far, 2 for 2, and we'll keep it rolling with your number 9.
Okay, cool. So my number 9 is by it's an iconic song by an iconic artist. It is Raspberry Beret by Prince. I love to groove to this song. I love the back of Prince's vocals in particular. He has that characteristic Prince way of its various inflections and the sounds he makes. It adds to the whole texture of the song. It's got a good groove. Raspberry Beret, the background vocals, the female background vocals really build into it. He's telling a story, and I feel like I'm there in the story. I know where like I can imagine the whole scene. I love the description in the lyrics of like the shopkeeper didn't like my kind because I was too leisurely. Just
Yeah,
like that, I think that's sort of clever. It's building a picture for me. A fun song. It's one of Prince's tops. So it is again. I don't like. I'm not going to go. This is not one like it's going to be at the top of my list, obviously, but it's a nice, pleasant song to listen to. and just the unique stylings of Prince and his own doing his own thing. I think just builds and adds so much to so much of his discography, including this song.
Yeah, I'm glad that you put Prince on your list. Because I don't know if I've really discussed at length yet on this podcast, but I'm not a big Prince fan. I grew up in a Michael Jackson household, and I think my mom was still very much in the, you can only be in one camp. And so we were definitely in the Michael Jackson camp. And so I didn't hear a lot of Prince growing up. Just, if my mom was playing music, or if we were watching like VH1 and Prince came on, like my mom would switch the channel usually because she wasn't a fan. So therefore I didn't really hear a lot of it. With that being said, it doesn't mean that I don't enjoy his music now, as an adult. And, as I, became an adult and developed my own, musical identity and such, like, I appreciate Prince, and there's songs that I think are, just a lot of fun. Little Red Corvette is fun. And I mean, When Doves Cry is I really, really enjoy that song. I think that's a lot of fun. Kiss is interesting. So, it's not likely there's ever going to be a Prince song on any of my lists during this podcast, because it probably would have happened already, just because some of the songs I mentioned have already happened. But almost every single year, my guest has had a Prince song. And so I like that, because I clearly Prince deserves to be celebrated and recognized on this show. And so I always appreciate a guest for doing that. And it's not like I don't find any of his music to be bad or anything like that. Like, definitely enjoyable, just because I don't have that nostalgic tether to any of them. It's hard for them to make a top 10 for me.
Yeah, I don't either. I did not grow up listening to Prince whatsoever. And I'm similar. I'm thinking of similar to you. Like, his music is not my favorite. It's not what I'll put on. It's not what I'll put on if I'm listening to 80s music usually. But it's enjoyable enough that I appreciate his legacy and what he did for music.
And just for like life, right? I mean, he seemed like he was just a great like individual too. So that always helps, right? Push people over the top. Like, if I'm stuck between two, I'm like, well, who was a good like humanitarian, who wasn't? So there's a lot of great stuff out there about Prince. You don't really hear anything negative, just about him or his music.
Yeah. All right, what's your number 9?
So it's interesting, like our list so far. The kind of
I love it. I love
the way that it's mirrored already, because we both had something kind of fun in the 10th spot, and then in the 9th spot you went kind of more. I mean, you went more iconic singer, and I have also done that for my number 9. I've gone with a really iconic singer. My number 9 is "Part-Time Lover" by Stevie Wonder.
Yeah, not on my list either.
This is a song that I just really, really enjoy. I think that his vocals on this song are just amazing. It's just such a fun song. Again, only he could do it. Like, this is just, he put his stamp on it. The lyrics, especially when he takes it up into the, we are undercover, passion on the run. Like, the lyrics are good. Like, it rhymes in it, but it also makes sense, right? It's not one of those weird 80s songs that just rhymes for no reason. Like, there's a story to it, and it makes a lot of sense. And I just think he performs it well. He sings it incredibly well. It's got that fun tempo and a really fun groove to it. Like, it sounds like it would be jazzy. It sounds jazzy, but it's not. It's very poppy. But if you slowed it down, like, it would work in a jazz club. And I think that's what's interesting about this song too, is that it would work in different genres.
I would love to hear that. That would be,
yeah. And I think he would do an excellent job of delivering it that way. Like, I like songs that could work when you think about it, and would this work in a different genre? Would this still have the same appeal? And I think this song would, just because of his vocal quality and the way that he sings it and delivers it. Just one that, like, you get your shoulders moving when it comes on. It's just like, it's just fun. It's just a really just nice song, sung incredibly well. One of my favorite songs by Stevie Wonder, who obviously has,
oh my word,
dozens and dozens of incredible songs. And this is one of my favorite ones by him. And I'm not sure that I ever necessarily attributed this to 1985. I never. Some Stevie Wonder is hard to place, right? Because so many of his things like are him, and they sound like there's something from him in the 70s and something from him in the 90s, and you can't really tell when it was, because he's never really changed, right? He's been so
Yeah.
consistent. And so it's hard for me to place. And so when I was looking through, the eligibility of songs for this list and I saw Part-Time Lover, I was a little bit surprised that it was 1985 because I didn't initially remember that, but I was happy because I knew I could place it somewhere on my list.
Yeah, it's a great song. I think this is another one that I'm like, I would have loved to have this on my list. Uh, it's I loved Stevie Wonder, his longevity in this. Like, you go early 70s through the mid 80s, and he's like just producing hits all along the way. Like you said, there's that Stevie Wonder quality, like he's just so consistent all the way through. Yeah, it's a great story. It's a great story in the lyrics. I feel it, and so I think the music matches the lyrical content, which I appreciate a lot of times. It's a great track. I have no problems with this being on your list. Just didn't make mine.
Cool. Let's keep it going, man.
Let's keep her moving. Okay. Number 8 is the first of the one-hit wonders on my list. May not be the only one. It is number 8 is St. Elmo's Fire, Man in Motion by John Parr.
This was like my number 11 or 12. It
Okay.
just missed my list.
Yeah, I was struggling with where exactly to put this on my list. Was this 7? Was this 8? I initially had it a little bit higher, brought it back down within the last 24 hours, tinkering with this thing. But that doesn't mean I don't love the song. I mean, I think this is, if I had to say, like, not just like my favorite songs, but what songs to me represent the 80s, like, I think this might make my top 25 of the whole decade. It just, to me, there's something about this that I just know. St. Elmo's Fire, the movie. This is the theme track for the movie. So that already puts it just squarely in my mind as an 80s thing. I love in this song the lyrics of the inspiration of it. I feel like there's inspirational lyrics because John Parr was inspired to write the song by a Canadian athlete who circled the globe on his wheelchair. And the world tour was called the Man in Motion World Tour, thus the song. I thought that was such a cool inspiration. I think Parr has a really powerful voice that lends itself to like an epic feeling in this song. It's building, and by the end, it swells and it grows into this epic crescendo at the end of just like you can conquer. You're moving on up. You're like building towards something. I think it's fun, and it is iconic to me of the 80s. Building lyrics that match the inspirational epic feel of the whole thing. So St. Elmo's Fire, Man in Motion, John Parr, my number 8.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with inspirational. That's the first thing that comes to mind when I hear this song. Is this just makes you want to rise to the occasion. It almost has that like Eye of the Tiger quality, right? Where you hear this and you're just like, whatever it is I'm setting out to do, whatever that goal is, like this really makes me want to achieve it and kind of gives me that extra edge to perform over the top and make it. I don't remember this song too much, like growing up. I don't know if I just missed it or if it wasn't as popular. Maybe I feel like maybe this could be, and again, neither one of us were around to know for sure, but I could see this being one of those songs that was really big at the time because of the movie, and then in a couple of years, maybe kind of really died down, right, and didn't necessarily have the staying power. But it's a great song. Like it's one of those songs where everyone knows the higher and higher part. And it's kind of like, you hear it in like in the mall or you hear it wherever, and people are kind of like, and then they get to the higher and higher. Yeah, and that's like that real fun part that everyone knows, but you might not know like the rest of the words in the chorus. And so those songs are always fun when it always has that, that one note that you can really, latch onto, and you just kind of wait for it to come around again because it's repeated so many times in the song. But yeah, I mean, definitely a one-hit wonder, but really, really sung well. John Parr has that almost Steve Perry-esque sort of delivery with this song.
Powerful voice. Yeah.
If you told me that Steve Perry turned this down, I wouldn't be surprised. You know what I mean? Like it sounds like something that he would have recorded, around that time. And I mean, obviously with how amazing and how epic Journey was at the time, like the fact that it sounds similar to something like that, I'm sure is part of the reason that the song was as popular as it was.
Yeah, it is. It was a number one all over the world.
Yeah.
And it's I mean obviously I think the fact that it is paired with a movie I think helps
Yeah.
launch it
Oh
to
yeah.
that status. Um, so I bet I wouldn't be surprised to think that to hear that you're right that it was really popular. I mean it's obviously very popular. It's number one for a while.
Yeah.
But then over time it sort of kind of fades. But yeah,
Well, you also get, I mean, this is really the time too when those movie soundtracks, like, you had Saturday Night Fever, of course, obviously the best-selling soundtrack of all time in the late 70s. But then I feel like for a little while there weren't too many like songs from movies, right? But now I think, and we'll see as this podcast
I was gonna say there's other ones this year.
Yeah, there's other ones this year, and there's other ones just coming up in general over the next 5 to 10 years, I think. I'm thinking, 1992 obviously has a huge one. 1995 has a huge one. So, and I think probably this song, I think the staying power, people, when you think song from a movie, people immediately go to some other ones, obviously.
Yep.
And I think this one maybe unfortunately gets buried a little bit.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think that's a great point. Do you think like this is a small tangent. Do you think like movies today would like benefit from like because I don't think we see that as much today where there's movies linked with songs as much or
yeah, I guess there's like that Billie Eilish song from the Barbie soundtrack that apparently is like all over the place now, but yeah, it's definitely not as prevalent. I mean, I think back and like Skyfall by Adele is one of the last ones I can remember that was like really, and that's a Bond movie, right? So it's that was going to have that. But yeah, definitely not as big now, right? I mean, movies, a lot of just the movies don't need songs. And when you think of what the kind of big movies are, there's not really a need for it. Like Marvel movies don't really need to have, they're so big, they don't need a song to go with them. Like Black Panther had a great soundtrack, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not as,
it doesn't need a song. That's just like,
the movies kind of sell themselves, without the song. So, all right, awesome. Number 8 for me. I mentioned at the beginning that I think new wave was on the downswing, but it wasn't dead yet. And it's funny that I say that because my number 8 is by the band Dead or Alive, and it's the song "You Spin Me Round Like a Record."
Not on my list either.
Super well-known song from the 80s. Thanks to the Wedding Singer in the 90s gave this song new life. And then I think obviously the Kesha Flow Rida Right Round from 2009 again sort of paid homage to the song and sampled it and gave it new life as well. But this is a song to me that's never really gone away. This is one of those songs that's on pretty much every quintessential like 80s playlist. Like if you go on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever you play your music off of and you put in like 80s playlist, this is one of the songs that I feel like it's always on those lists and frequents them because it's very 80s. This song doesn't work in a different decade. This is very much an 80s song, but it's so catchy. Like you spin me, right round, baby, right round, like a record, baby, right round, round, round. Like it's just, that's all it is. It's fun. It's new wave. It's 80s. It's memorable. It's catchy. Anytime it's on, it's infectious. Like I can't not sing along to the chorus when I hear it. Yeah. It's just I don't really care about the rest of the song if I'm being honest.
No, it's the chorus. It's
the watch out, here I come into the you spin me, and that's
you
it.
Spin me round.
Yeah. That's it. And that, you know what? That's all I need. I don't need verses in this song. Like I don't care. That's all I need is the however long, the 15 seconds of the chorus. Literally all I need for this to
just inject that into my veins. That's all I need.
Yeah, that's it. It's just Dead or Alive was maybe a one-hit wonder. Like they didn't last very long, but the fact that they left us this is great. And I will say also, I just want to preface this. I know this for anyone listening who's fact checking. This was released in November of '84. So, but I did allow it just because it came out, within 2 months of the year ending, and it really didn't it didn't get everywhere until early '85. So
Yeah, I think that's a good caveat to include that I have songs higher on my list that are the exact same way.
yeah,
They came out in November of '84, but if you look at the charts when they were popular, it's early 1985.
that too, and
So
back then too, it would take a little while, right? It wasn't as instantaneous. Where hey, this
yeah,
single's out, I can go listen to it right now.
yep,
So even something released in November, if you wanted to get the record, like a lot of people probably weren't hearing it until 1985. So I'll allow it. I tend to, for the sake of just this podcast and not talking about the same songs 2 years in a row, 2 episodes in a row. I try to
yeah,
keep it succinct to songs released in that particular year, but obviously, like, there's some leeway, and this was one of those.
yeah. There's gray area because yeah, if you have songs that are released in late 1985, are they
Yeah,
86 or they 85? So yeah,
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't have much more to say though. I mean, again, all I need is that chorus, and that was enough for it to be number 8 for me.
yeah. I did not know this song growing up. All I knew my first exposure to these lyrics were Kesha singing them.
Yes.
Uh, and I come to find out later in life, oh, that's actually based on a different song. Uh, there's actually another song with that. So I was like, okay, now I know. So I think I won't make a comment as to which of those versions I prefer, the original or the Flo Rida version, but uh, I like clearly Flo Rida and Kesha must, or whoever wrote the song for them must have thought
Yeah.
that was good. Anyway, all right, let's keep it moving. Number 7 for me is I will. I wonder if I should just lay this out before. I'll say the name of the song and then I'll go into this. My number 7 is "Shout" by Tears for Fears.
Yeah, a great song. Great song. It sounds like you have a lot to get into. So quickly, this this
Oh,
this song, I learned it because Disturbed covered it. And I believe it was on their Down with the Sickness album.
mhm.
And my brother and I had that album and obviously would play it all the way through. And they're like, oh, this shout song is cool. And then one day we were singing it and my mom started singing along. And we were like, well, mom doesn't listen to current music. How does she know this? And then that's when I learned that it was a remake of an 80s song. So that's how I was introduced to it. And then we decided that we liked it so much. My brother and I did a podcast on our karaoke machine with our friends in the early 2000s, and we made Shout our theme song for our radio show that we did.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's my
This,
story for that.
yeah, I think I'll share more about uh, this later on in my list. Minor spoiler alert, but uh, "Shout" is I did not. I've heard this song a long time ago. Like it was one of the first songs. Like I didn't listen to a lot of 80s music as a kid, but this is a song that just somehow got into my life. And it's just so like it's to me it's iconic. Shout, shout, let it. It's anthemic. It's
Yeah,
ominous. Like I love that about Tears for Fears music just generally is that it's heavy a lot of the time. There's a seriousness to it that they're making pop songs, but they're making pop songs that sound they're reflecting the time they were written in because 1985 is the height of the Cold War, and so this song "Shout" is a protest song. It is protesting Cold War and violence. And there's a line in the song about like it's as the walls like we're holding hands as the walls come crumbling down. I'll be right beside you because you're like there's bombs, not nuclear warfare around. So love that this song is a pop song. It's catchy. You know the chorus, but there's a deep message to it that reflects the era it was written in. I love when that happens. It gives me a taste of okay, what was the worldview, what was the experience of these guys when they're writing this. So I love that pairing of this song. It's you know it, shout, shout, let it all out,
yeah,
but it has that more serious side to it. Um, so I love it, and my number 7, shout, Tears for Fears.
yeah. Wow, you make such a compelling case for that. I'm almost upset that I didn't put it on my list because I completely agree. And it's always extra points for me when a song is just easy to sing along to. Like this is
Hmm.
it's easy, right? And extra points for me. I don't have the capability to do this yet, but I picture my future as the same. I picture my future as the scene from Step Brothers with Derek and his family in the car with Guns N' Roses, except it's me and my girlfriend and hopefully our two kids in the back seat. And and so I'm a sucker for songs that the whole family can like sing along together,
Yep.
and where there's not a lot of nuance to it, even though in this case there's a ton of nuance to this song, but just on the surface level, there's not, right? Like this is a song that a kid could hear, and
Yep.
it's like, and
Totally.
shout, let it all out just makes a lot of sense for them without having to know the meaning behind it,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
always extra points for me for a song that can be sung by the whole family, because that is my goal for the future.
It's this song is 6.5 minutes. It's long, but
Yeah.
every time I listen to it, it goes by fast. It's not a drag. So I think that also points in its favor. All right, what you
Yeah.
got?
Great. That's a great number seven. My number seven is also a long song. That's because it's done by multiple artists, so it makes sense.
Mm.
Um, and I struggled at where to put this because it's probably one of the most popular songs of the year. It's probably one of the more well-known songs of all time, just because of the reason for the song and all of these artists coming together. So I really struggled where to put it because it's of how classic it is. However, when I when I listen to it, I find myself skipping sometimes to certain
Mm.
parts, and so that was a detriment, right? And so I felt like it had to lose some spots for that. And to be quite honest, and maybe this is my age, but I prefer the more modern version of this song better.
Oh
But
yeah.
my number seven is "We Are the World," of course. Artists for Africa. Michael Jackson, Cyndi Lauper, Bruce Springsteen, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, so I struggled where to place it because obviously as a kid, like it's something really cool to see. Like these songs where all these artists come together, they're not very common, right? They're few and far between. Like,
Hmm.
do they really know it's Christmas and We Are the World and some of these, so it was so
Hmm.
cool. Like as a kid, I remember watching this video and thinking like, wow, it's really cool to see all these artists who I see individually in their music videos, but all together, singing as one. Like that's just kind of a trip, the first time you kind of see it. So there's that.
Yeah.
And like, obviously when it comes to songs with a message, it's hard to beat this one, as far as what was at stake and the reason
Yep.
for the song, of course. And, the fact that obviously Michael Jackson's featured very heavily in it was a plus, for me. And, so it is a great song. Like I said, I do find myself skipping certain parts sometimes. One, because of the length, and two, like if it's a singer that like I just don't really care about their voice, then I skip their part. So I think that's the part with that's the caveat of having a song where there's so many people singing on it is there may not be, all the way through, you may not enjoy it, right? But at the
You
same
want
time,
it?
on the flip
Yeah.
side, there's something for everyone,
Yeah.
right?
You
So.
want to name names on this podcast right here? Who you don't have to, but
Willie Nelson, like it's just not my bag, not my cup of tea. Just things like that. And like I
yeah.
said, I think again because of my age, find myself listening to the 2012 version of this more if I want to listen to the
Yeah.
song because
Yeah.
personally I just think it's sung better because I just think there are better singers throughout in the newer version. So that's the one I'll listen to. But of course, like I still love this song and I love the message and obviously it's
Yep.
a cool music video just seeing all these people in the studio. So wasn't sure where to place it, but seven felt right because the six songs I have ahead of it, I will certainly always listen to
Mhm.
over this, and so I felt like it was in the right spot.
Yeah. Yeah. This is not on my list, obviously. I think for me, this song, the message of it and the reason why it's like on would deserve to be on my top 10 list. I think it's cool
Yeah,
that okay, all these artists, like the biggest name are like it's not just like C-list. It's like the biggest names in almost music history
yeah,
come together and all perform on the same song. And that I've watched the behind the scenes videos of them recording it. That's
yep,
so cool. So cool. I love that like the cause they're getting behind that like Michael Jackson took a big part in being a part of writing the song. In the lyrics, I can see like his like signature
Oh yeah.
all over the lyrics. And so I just like this. The song itself to me doesn't do much for me
Yep. That's kind of where
musically.
I'm at too. Yeah.
Musically, so if I'm listening to it, I'm like, I'm just not like I don't care. I shouldn't say I don't care, but I don't feel like really moved by the song. I'm
Yeah.
moved more by the fact that they did this and that they all came together for something like that. And so that's ultimately the reason it was off my list. Is just I don't care for the song musically a
Yep.
ton, though its message is good.
Yeah, I'm with it. Like I said, yeah, it's not. It's a good song. Like, don't. It's not a bad song by any means, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I do think it's a little bit disappointing in the sense of the song itself, right? Based on who had a hand in writing it, who performed on it. Like, I almost feel like this song, if it's just Michael Jackson, might actually be better,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
sad to
yeah,
say. And I
yeah.
don't mean to throw shade at any of the other artists on there, but it almost feels like maybe it would have been less.
No,
It feels a little disjointed sometimes, and
yeah. If I like if yeah, if I like somehow lost the memory of this song being by all these artists, and you told me that this was a Michael Jackson song, I believe it, 100%. It
yeah,
fits right in with what he's writing about.
yep.
I mean, songs like "Man in the Mirror," like I mean,
Heal the
it,
world. Yeah,
yeah.
so yeah. This is
So
it's yeah, signature Michael, like you said. His stamp is definitely on this one.
yeah, cool. All right, moving on to my number six. Now this one I would very much suspect is not going to be on your list. We haven't had one so far that we haven't had any
Yeah,
crossovers yet, which is fun.
I
But I
think we
suspect
will,
we're
based on what you said earlier. I think there's one
I think
coming,
so.
but
I think so too. I
yeah,
think like you said at the beginning, this is a top heavy year, and I agree. So I think near the top we're gonna. But I would suspect this one is not going to be on your list. And this is one that is the biggest grower for me from starting listening to these songs to now. And it's a song called "And She Was" by the Talking Heads.
yeah,
And she
definitely not on my list. I've heard of it. I don't know if I
yeah.
could sing it for you right now, but I've definitely heard of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I figured that might be the reaction. So I like David Byrne is the lead singer of Talking Heads, of songs such as Burning Down the House, Once in a Lifetime, tracks like that. I think this is one is like sort of third or fourth on their hits, but I think it's one at the end, and I think it's probably one of my favorites, if I had to rank them. But this is a really out of left field pick. I mean, I'm a Talking Heads fan, so this one just has to make the list. I like so David Byrne's music is quirky. He's a quirky dude. In interviews or just in his life, his music reflects him as a person. It's quirky, it's weird, it's strange, it's out of left field. Musically, lyrically, it's just going to be like you don't know where things are going. It's all always very interesting. The lyrics of this song describe a woman who is on some sort of acid trip and she's floating above the ground, observing life from the sky. And so that's already just like an interesting topic for a
Yeah,
song. And I think David Byrne, his musical genius is that his music is simultaneously like, okay, what the heck? What is going on in this song? And okay, this is super catchy. Like Once in a Lifetime is another song that's like, hey, what are these lyrics? But at the same
yeah,
time, I can't help but like sing it. I love when that can be the case. That it's interesting musically, like there's different key changes, there's all sort of different kinds of instrumentation that you don't normally get in just run-of-the-mill pop music, but it has enough of the pop sensibility to it that it fits. It's an easy song to listen to. It's catchy. I love when those things can get paired together, that they're interesting and catchy at the same time. Um, so this song is it's light, it's breezy, it's happy. I think it's impossible to feel sad listening to this song. I think this song is probably the lightest, some of the lightest that Talking Heads music gets in terms of just like it's not heavy, it's not like really weighty, but it's a great track. If you are not familiar with the Talking Heads, I encourage you to check them out, listen to it. I think you're in for a good time. So yeah, and she was by the Talking Heads, number six.
I love it. I love when there's something not necessarily out of left field because the research I'm doing, I mean, it seems like it was a well-known song. It's not by any means, a song out of left field, but definitely not something that came close to my list. And I like that, of course.
Yeah,
I want that here.
it didn't get anywhere near the like number one hit. I think it charted.
Yeah,
That they were big enough, but
right.
uh, they're not traditional pop and that kind of thing. So anyway,
Yeah, yeah, but at the same time, this is the first time that they've been represented on this podcast, and I think that's good, right? Because Burning Down the House was a huge song, and that's a really good song. That just 1983 was so stacked. I don't think that song necessarily had a chance. When Dan Lumberg and I did the 1983 episode. But yeah, so it's nice to see certain bands or artists represented, even if it's maybe after the fact of when maybe they should have been. But at least, we still get the chance to recognize them and talk about them. So I'm glad, to hear that Talking Heads made it. And it's a song that I'll definitely be checking out. And if, you're listening and you are not too familiar, then I recommend you check it out too, because I trust Trevor's judgment. So
yeah. Please let me know what you think afterwards. I'm curious.
Yeah, awesome. All right, my number 6. Look, my 1984 list, I had 2 Madonna songs. And I said it on that episode that trend was likely to continue, possibly throughout the rest of the decade. And this is no different. So then it was just picking, whittling it down to 2 from Madonna is actually really tough for me. I grew up with the Madonna's Immaculate Collection album on repeat, thanks to my mom. So, I mean, I know all these songs backwards and forwards, word for word, all of them, every song that's on that album. So, it usually comes down to which ones am I going to pick.
Yeah,
I went with Into the Groove, for my number 6, which is just really like, this is a song that's just a lot of fun for me. This is, to me, you put this I'm a big like playlist curator guy, right? Like I always think about like the soundtrack of your life, or the soundtrack of your wedding, or whatever the case is. Like when it comes to a playlist, how do you build it? Where do you put things? And this is a beginning of a playlist gem for me. Like literally the words Into the Groove with the beat and the tempo of that song like puts you in a mood, and you're ready to dance. You're ready to to get up, start moving your feet. You know that you're in for a good time. This has that wanna be starting something quality of like let's get up, let's get everyone to the dance floor, let's just start this thing up and let's go, and we're about to have a really good time for the next hour. Right. And that's what this song is, Get Into the Groove. And it's so much fun. It's so reminiscent of like early Madonna, it's like Borderline and just like some of Lucky Star, like just some of her other really fun songs, from her early days. And this one is no different to me. Get Into the Groove. You got to prove your love to me. The lyrics are good. I think this was just one of those songs that continued to put her on that trajectory to becoming the queen of pop. Like this is just, to me, like just excellent. I love the song. It's a lot of fun, and just a great song from a great artist who deserves to be represented. So Into the Groove.
Great. Yeah, I'm no like music historian, but did this album like launch her? Like it's not her first album, but it's kind of like the start of Madonna being who she is.
It's kind of like her Thriller.
Yeah. I mean, there's multiple hits on there, so it's not a surprise. Yeah, I think so. Madonna might be like my version of Prince to you.
Okay.
That I did not grow up listening to it. I have no sort of I don't have that nostalgia, so I enjoy plenty of her songs. But to me, it's not gonna. If I have the choice, I'm not going to choose it. But I mean, I had on my original list, I had multiple Madonna songs. None of them ended up making the cut for me.
Well, that's fine, because there's another one coming up for me later. So plenty of Madonna on this episode.
Love it.
We're about to crack into our top 5s. We are halfway through. Okay. We are just chugging along, and I'm interested now to see how much crossover there might be with both of us referencing, how top heavy it is. So let's see. And if so, how do we have them ranked is also what I'm interested to see.
So up until this point, so I think my number 5 is the biggest chance so far we have of a crossover. My number 5 is How Will I Know by Whitney Houston.
My number 5 is How Will I Know by Whitney Houston.
Oh, excellent.
And
Oh,
I
man.
really struggled with placement. This was my 4 until about probably earlier this afternoon. I moved it down one spot. So, yeah,
it was.
You start first, and I'll yeah.
Yeah, we'll just have the conversation then. That's awesome. Not just a crossover, but right on the same one. That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, what I thought about as I've listened to this song multiple times over the last couple of weeks is Whitney's voice makes this song to me. I think it's a good track. I think the music is good. Like it's a good pop song. But
yeah,
boy, does she belt this it's early Whitney. But
yeah. I mean, this is really the first big pop hit
and
for her.
I don't even know if I could just describe how I feel about it perfectly, but she belts it and it's okay, she's announcing herself to the world immediately with these pipes. I mean, so I was after I had this thought, I was like, wait, why does this song take 40 seconds to get us to Whitney singing? There's 40 seconds of just music instrumental. I'm like, give me more. I want more of her vocal in this track. She is just doing, it's amazing. I love what she does vocally in this song. I do love also the background vocals. Some don't trust your feelings.
The stuff that gets overlooked a little bit almost.
Yeah. I love that in the background. That's good. It is a head bopper. Can't help but dance. There's a nice sax solo near the end that I think is fun. This one's grown on me big time too. Just being wow, okay, she really announced herself onto the scene with this song, and I'm like that. It's been a little while since I've been blown away, and I know Whitney Houston, but just rediscovering this song recently is she had a voice that few people in the world have ever topped.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, how she really came out and announced herself. It's the third word of the song. It's the way she sings "boy." There's a boy, boy, you're okay, all right. That's all it took.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
By the third word of that song,
you're totally right.
And it just, man,
boy.
I love, there's something to be said to me about one. I mean, I'm just a sucker for pop divas, right? That's just my jam. That's my area, and I love to, you think back to kind of that first initial pop exposure that all these artists had, right? You have Baby One More Time with Britney Spears. You have Pawn to Replay with Rihanna. And just some of these, and this is Whitney's version of that. She was releasing music in the early 80s. She had some singles. She had Saving All My Love for You, which was also in 1985, which was a ballad, right? But this was that first sort of, oh, this is a pop artist. This is not just a balladeer. She's not just gonna belt out these songs. She can also sort of cross into that almost Madonna territory, because that's what Madonna was doing, right? It was almost like the Black Madonna, right? At that, that's what this song was. This was a song that you're okay, it's funny you mentioned how, she sort of makes the song what it is. If this is a Madonna song or a Cyndi Lauper song, who are kind of the two really pop divas, contemporaries, it's not quite the same, right? It doesn't work the same.
Yeah. I think I read it was originally for Janet Jackson, I think.
Right. And she's probably the only other person that maybe would have had a chance, but even so, it really, this was perfect for Whitney. I actually recently watched the movie. I don't know if you've seen it yet. The I Want to Dance with Somebody, the biopic, which is actually pretty good. I like a good biopic, but there's a scene in the movie when you kind of just hear this, and I kind of sat up a little bit more, okay, now we're really getting into the movie, right? Now How Will I Know is out, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's really, getting into it. Hot take, I think this song is way better than I Want to Dance with Somebody.
Interesting.
And not that I don't like that song. One, I think that song is very played out, and I think that song is very, very overplayed. So I think that goes into it. But I actually I think How I Know is the better song. And they really kind of are her two biggest, I think, pure pop sort of songs. Like a
Mhm.
lot of her other ones kind of veer into R&B, or they're slower, and ballads. So
Mhm.
I always compare the two, and I prefer this song. Like I actually think How Will I Know is the better song.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really enjoy this song.
Oh.
Like
Yeah.
it's so much fun, and not only that, but it's also very like easy. It's relatable. It's very easy to relate to this, whether from the male or female perspective. You know, there's someone that you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
and you're interested in them, but how are you really going to know?
Totally. Yeah.
How do you know how they're feeling?
Everyone, yeah, everyone deals with that.
Everyone has been through this. It doesn't matter.
Everyone,
Yeah. So
everyone.
it's super relatable. And like you said, yeah, the background's fun, and just the how will I know is if he really loves me, like it's a great song. And then you have does he love me? Does he
Me,
love me? Not
if
like
me not, yeah, yeah. I was literally just gonna say
when
that's
it
a
breaks into
great
that
part.
part, like yeah, that's so much fun. Like man, this is
I should,
Whitney Houston's going to come up again, of course, later on as the show progresses. But I love this. This is a great song.
the more we talk about it, the more I'm like, oh, this should have moved up higher on my list.
Yeah,
I just,
I'm
I,
yeah, I'm having
I
that too
like,
right now.
yeah, I'm just like, but it is what it is. Number five is still great. So
Yeah, I knew it would be in my top five, like no matter what. It was just a matter of placement. And I could have flip flopped it with my number four. And maybe now thinking about it, I should have. But either way, I'm glad that it's our first crossover. We both have it in the same spot. Sounds like we both have the same sort of adoration for it. So
seriously, I think, yeah, I don't know if I haven't thought about how I would compare those two songs, but you saying that is really interesting. So I want to give that some thought. But
cool.
all right,
Well, we
we can fanboy about Whitney Houston for the next 30 minutes. We won't. Uh,
no, that's a different show. Maybe sometime in the future.
yeah, there will be more opportunities in this decade to do that.
Yeah.
All right, my number four is it is the only band that I have two songs on, and judging by how I've acted over the course of this list so far, you might know what band it is. My number four is "Everybody Wants to Rule the World" by Tears for Fears.
My number four is "Everybody Wants to Rule the World" by Tears
No
for
way,
Fears.
dude. No
Yep.
way, dude.
Dude,
Wild.
flipped it with How Will I Know this afternoon. Like,
No crossover. 10 through 6, and then
yeah,
two. That's great. That's phenomenal.
two in the exact
Okay,
thing. And that is the first time that's ever happened on this podcast. So,
we're making
podcast
history.
first. We are making history in 1985.
Okay. Yeah, I have a lot. I don't have a lot to say, but so this album, the album that this comes from, "Songs from the Big Chair," I think is, to me, to my mind, like an iconic 80s album for rock music. I think we talk about music that exists only in the 80s. I think something like Tears for Fears only exists in the 80s.
Yep.
It comes, it's like I said for Shout. The music is of a time and a place. Few songs on my list, if any, apart from Tears for Fears, are that. That it's pop songs that were written in I mean, just the name of the track, "Everybody Wants to Rule the World," is like all these people are fighting. They're all fighting against each other.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to rule the world. And in the end, like, stuff's gonna break, stuff's gonna fall. And it's what are the consequences of all this fighting that's going on? And so Songs from the Big Chair, this was their album that launched them. They had Mad World in 1983
Yeah.
off of that record. That was a hit. But Songs from the Big Chair, this album launched them. There's I don't know, this probably isn't on your list, but there's another song I could have included on this list, "Head Over Heels," which is another huge track. I love this song for a lot of the same reasons I love Shout. I think this one's even more catchy. I think the reason it's higher on my list is that sort of "everybody wants to rule the world." Like, it's instantly recognizable. It's catchy. Uh, I could say more, but why is it your number four?
Because of Welcome to your life. Like the way it just starts is like you're hooked instantly. Like that's the thing with the 80s and the what's been consistent about all of these years is there are just those songs that just catch you from the very beginning and captivate you. And they bring you in and you can't escape until the song is over. And this is one of those. Like this song is so good. This is another one of those songs that's going to be on any like 80s playlist. Like if you look, best songs from the 80s, like this song is on it. Like and it's like the music and the background is just fun and like there's a room where the light won't find you. Like
holding hands.
It's just sung so well. Like it's on this song is just incredible. Like it's pretty much, and it's like stood the test of time too. It's still a song that you hear. Like it's still pretty well known. And that always factors into my list a little bit is the staying power. And this song definitely has it, where a lot of other songs that can only be from the 80s kind of stayed in the 80s. Whereas this one is definitely a song that people know, regardless of, their generational preference of music. It's really just, if I was introducing an alien, right? If an alien came down and said, like, I want to learn 80s music, this is probably one of the first songs I'm going to play for them.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think it's just so 80s, and it just really encapsulates, to me especially, it encapsulates like the first half of the 80s decade.
Yeah.
Like the music. Like it encapsulates all of that, like Eurythmics and just all of that, like, funky talent, like just a little bit of everything in there. That sort of soft sell kind of, new wavy 80s music.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Yeah, I even all those lines that it's like you can have such a catchy song that is recognized that you love, and it has lyrics that are significant that touch on interesting themes. I guess I'm just a sucker for like songs that mean something and also can be catchy. Like it can be a sad song.
Yeah, and this one's also just so much fun to sing along with because of the vocal choices that he makes.
Yes.
Help me to decide.
Right.
Like it's just like that didn't have to be there. He could have just kept it.
Freedom and
yeah, like it could have just stayed where it was and it would have been fine. But no, like like the fact that they played around with it a little bit just adds to it just so much better.
Yeah.
That's probably why it made it up to number 4 for me. Is like this is one of the more fun song to sing along with for me on my list.
Totally. Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's got over a billion plays on Spotify for a reason.
As it should. Yeah.
Yeah. It's their most popular song for good reason. And it's
yeah.
the highest, and it's the highest. And it's number 4 on our lists.
Yeah, that's right. All right, can we go 3 for 3? Are we going back to back to back?
I don't think so.
I'm almost positive it won't happen.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, if you're positive, then I should be positive too. All right. My number 3 is Kiri by Mr. Mister.
Okay. Yes. Not my number 3. So streak is broken. It's in my honorable mentions for sure.
Okay. Sadly. Yeah. So Mr. Mister is such a fun band to me. Because they encapsulate one of my favorite things in music, which is the 2-hit wonder.
Yes.
Anyone can write one hit. There are a lot of bands that write a lot of hits. But there's a more select group that only have 2 hits. And Mr. Mister it fascinates me that you can have 2 songs that are mega hits and then never again do anything of like big time significance. And Mr. Mister is that band with Kiri and Broken Wings, which is not on my list. But Kiri is a incredibly fun song. I love there's a great build into the first verse. There's the instrumentation is building a sense of expectation. And it starts with Kiri lays on.
Yeah.
And it's building towards something. I think the chorus is so infectious to me that I can sing it all. I just can sing it. Even as I'm thinking about it, I can sing.
Yeah.
Kiri lays down the
road that I must travel.
Yeah. it's got such a sweet groove. It's not in your face. I don't think it's not like dry. It's not so like in your face, but it's not too reserved. It's just it's on a solid path through. It's building towards the end. Great chorus, catchy chorus. The song, the lyrics about asking for guidance down the path of life. It's a great track that is good lyrically, super fun to listen to. Great chorus, uh, and it's they're a two-hit wonder. So
Yeah.
my number
So
three, Kiri Mr. Mr.
yeah, Mr. Like this was their year, 1985, right? Like
100%.
they are the epitome of that act that caught lightning in a bottle. They rode that wave for 12 months, and that was pretty much it. Like they are
Yeah.
the Linsanity of 80s groups. Like it was really, really high for a really short period of time,
Yeah.
and it never quite got to that
Yeah.
level again.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that you mentioned your affinity for two-hit wonders. I think that's great. Like I make my own Jeopardy games for my family because I got banned
Uh-huh.
from playing because I would always win. So
Oh
I had to
no.
start making them. And one of the
Yeah,
categories I had before was two-hit wonders.
that's
And it was
great.
just that was one, and it was like Leona Lewis.
Mm,
And it was so I took some liberties because it was like US two-hit wonders, right? Like
yeah.
because obviously there are artists that are big in other places, but it was like Dido, Katie Tunstall, Carly Rae Jepsen, right? Like there's a lot of modern. There's definitely some
Mm,
modern ones, but yes, Mr. absolutely two-hit wonder, and both really, really great songs. Both in my honorable mentions. I'll
yeah.
throw that out there now. Broken Wings is also a great song. And like again, they knew what worked, and they did it twice. Like they're
Yeah.
not dissimilar of songs, and so they both work
Yeah.
similarly.
Broken Wings is probably the more famous of the two of
Yeah, I
their
would say so.
songs. I enjoy it. It's near my list. Spoiler, it's not on my list, but
Yeah,
it is like it's near there, but curious something about it. Uh, I think generally I'm not as big of a ballad guy. Uh, I appreciate a good one, but fewer and further between.
yeah,
So yeah, Kiri makes it for me. Number three, long live the legacy, the 1 year of Mr.
yes.
Mister.
You and I have podcast together now a lot, and we've interacted in fantasy football drafts and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I knew Mr. would make your list at some point
Oh yeah.
somewhere, and so I felt good about leaving both of them off of mine because I just knew
You
that
know
they
it's gonna be
would be.
covered. Yeah, yeah,
I knew that it would be covered, and so I'm glad that I was right.
yes,
in my thoughts. So I
yeah.
don't. For some reason, I was just like Trevor. Just seems like he would enjoy those two Mr. songs.
Well, you're 100% correct.
Yeah,
I think it's an elite band name. My personal opinion, Mr.
sure.
Mister. Good band
Yeah,
name.
yeah. I
Can't
mean,
hurt.
you can't really. Yeah, it's a pretty superior sounding name. You can't really beat that. My number three is my second Madonna entry, which is how I knew for a fact we wouldn't
Okay.
cross over on this one. And this was technically released in November of '84, but because I didn't put it on my '84 list, I'm putting it on this one. It's Material Girl, which is one of her,
Mm,
most well-known songs.
yep. Yep.
One of her more iconic songs, and this is just one of those songs similar to. I won't say it's similar to anything else on this list, but it has just so many like different parts of the song that are fun. I mentioned it in my 83 episode or my 84 episode about Careless Whisper. Is that there's so many cool like parts individually that are broken down in that song. And Material Girl has that too, because it has like the part that everyone remembers, the big
Mhm.
opening and Madonna
Yep.
coming in with something about the way. Like it has that. But then it just has you know, that we are living and then but then it also gets to living in a
In
material
material
world. Like
world.
yeah,
Yep.
like it just has like these fun different little parts, right, that are fun to sing. Like just when you feel like you have it figured out and you're enjoying one way, something else comes in and you're like, whoa, this is fun too. And so this has that. And I just think it's a really just great song.
Yep.
cool message, like not something that was being sung about a lot.
Hmm.
Kind of owning up to the part that, that she is a material girl, and, unapologetically, like, saying that, we do live in a material world, which was, definitely something that was happening too with the times, in the mid 80s, like yuppies and, people who, with obviously like IBM and Microsoft and these different companies, and people were wanting more things, right? There were more things available, technology and video games were starting to come out. And so it was just kind of a perfect time capsule of like, we are really living in a material world now. And I want these things, is what she's saying. Like, and why, I don't want to be left out from this. And so I love that. I love the self-awareness of it. And, the fact that she's just like, yeah, absolutely. This is who I am. And I'm not going to shy away from it. So
unapologetically material.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's only the boys that save their pennies that make my rainy day.
Right. Like, yeah. So, and a good message for young boys to realize that at the time, like, listen, if you couldn't shell out for that steakhouse date, you had no chance.
You ain't getting Madonna.
Yeah, you have no chance. Like, save your money, save that piggy bank. Don't go spending it on comic books. Save that money, and maybe you'll have a shot.
Yeah, maybe one day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was certainly near my list. If I was going to choose one Madonna song, it was going to be this one.
Yeah, and a huge hit. Huge hit.
Oh, yeah.
So
huge.
Actually, like I said, all those songs, I heard them so many times, and Material Girl's obviously one that stuck with me. And just, love it. So there's my two Madonna for this one, and I'll see you in 1986 for more Madonna.
All right, cool. Hey, my number two. This is we referenced it earlier, but the sort of the gray area between, it was released in 1984, but it was a hit in 1985. This is technically a 1984 song, but it reached the charts in early 1985. It is "Easy Lover" by Philip Bailey and Phil Collins.
Yeah, not on my list. All right, good choice. Good choice.
Yeah,
that's a good song.
It's a bop, dude. Of all the songs that I was thinking through, this one grew the most. Like, I knew of the song, I had heard some covers of it, and I checked it out previously. But it skyrocketed. I mean, it's all the way up number two for crying out loud. It skyrocketed up my list the more I listened to it. If I had listened to this, like, if we record this next week, this might be my number one. I love, like, the pairing of Phil Collins and Philip Bailey. Their voices together in harmony is like chef's kiss. Philip Bailey has that sweet upper register falsetto that is like behind this driving beat behind it. I'm like, love this. I love every bit of it. Phil Collins, I'm a huge Phil Collins fan of his music generally. And this was not one that I would have considered as one of my favorite Phil Collins songs going into this.
Yeah.
This is going to be squarely up there for me now. Their voices pair just so well together. I love the use of falsetto. I think on their own, both artists are great. Bringing them together is so good. It's driving. That driving guitar line throughout is infectious. She's like, then I think it's a great groove, a lot of fun. She's an easy lover.
Yeah.
Like, I think this one's going to continue to grow on me. They knew exactly what they were doing and coming together and making this track. A lot of fun. So number two, Easy Lover.
Yeah, it really is. It's a really good song. Easy Lover. I also say easy listen. Like, it is. It's really.
Oh, good. That's good.
Really, really easy to listen to this song, right? Because it's just enjoyable. It's just enjoyable to hear as a song. It's another thing, we were talking about earlier. This is not something that happens anymore, right? This crossover, like, this isn't. When's the last time two male artists, really teamed up and did something like this? Like,
iconic. Both iconic in their
that's
own
what
right.
I mean. Yeah, I mean. Persona non grata, but like Usher and R. Kelly. Like, I'm just trying to remember, the last time that something like this even happened, and obviously in the 80s you had, Ebony and Ivory. You had the two team ups of Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson, Say 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 and The Girl Is Mine. You have Easy Lover. Like, this was something that was more common and something that you would see, and not something that really continues too much. Like, there's not a lot of that moving forward. Chad Kroeger and Josie Scott, Hero from the Spider-Man soundtrack. Like, there's just not a lot of that to come. And so I think that's what makes it also very unique, is that it's not something it's not a style of music that you're going to hear a lot of, because there's not much of it that exists.
Yeah. I totally agree. Another thing I love about this song is that Philip Bailey, he's got that falsetto, that's just a very natural falsetto.
Yeah.
He's not straining towards it. I think I know that because he's got like energy, and like there's some like twists and turns to his falsetto. I don't know how to describe it, but like he's very, very comfortable in that range. There's some attitude behind it. He's not just reaching high notes for the sake of reaching high notes, but he's living there and he's adding inflections to it. So it's the two great voices coming together with a driving, great groove beat behind it. An easy choice that is just going to kept climbing up my list all the way to number 2.
That's great. Yeah, byproduct of two great musicians. Like, that's what you're going to get. All right, my number 2, which I don't know. There's only one more chance for us to have a crossover here, so I don't know if this is your number 1 or not. But I don't know. You made a reference earlier to songs from movies, and so my number 2 is from a movie, a huge movie, arguably maybe the second, maybe your third biggest movie of 1985, a little cult classic flick called The Breakfast Club. My number 2 is Don't You Forget About Me by Simple Minds, which is obviously, the seminal song from that movie.
Yeah, yes. This song is not on my list.
Okay.
It was close. Right. It was close. I can talk about why, but go ahead, please.
Yeah, I mean, this song, there's not much to say. Like, everyone knows the scene at the end with Bender at the Breakfast Club, and he throws his fist into the air while the hey, 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 hey. Like, it's probably one of the most recognizable opens to a song, of all time. Like, I mean, and but even, and as fun as that is, like, the song itself, like, even the lyrics and the verses are good. The Won't You Come See About Me, I'll Be Alone Dancing, baby. And then obviously you get into the Don't You Forget About Me and the chorus. And then but you also get another song that has fun parts, the When You Walk On By, or the Will You Call My Name? It breaks into the la, 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 la. Like, there's so many fun parts of this song as well. Like, it fun to sing along to because it breaks down into different areas, and so you can anticipate the next part of it. The songs like that are always going to be high on my list. That's why Careless Whisper was my number 1 in 1984, for that same reason, is songs that just have that multiple breakdown. This song, and obviously it makes sense because it was at the end of The Breakfast Club, also the kind of the big song in the first Pitch Perfect movie, which was at the end of that. But this seems like the perfect song that you would want to have play at your funeral, and like, if my life is a movie and there's one song to play at the end, like, it's kind of hard to argue against Don't You Forget About Me.
Yeah, the song that ended a movie.
Yeah, like, it's really hard to argue against that. And so for me, that epicness and just that thinking about that, like, critically breaking that down, it's like, well, how can that song not be great? Like, I don't know that I could choose something over that. And I just love this song. Every time I hear it, I just think of myself like ending a chapter of something. Like, this is the perfect end of a chapter song, because obviously it's negative because something is ending, but it's positive because you're saying, don't forget about me. And the way that it's sung, it's not a melancholy song in the way that it's sung. Any song that has la, la, la in it is positive, right? So a positive sounding song. And to me, it's just so powerful. And I just love that it has sort of that multiple purpose meaning, that it is at the end of something, but also, like, it's a celebrate. It's a song to celebrate everything that has happened
Yeah.
up until this point.
Yeah.
And
Man,
so I love that.
yeah, that's so well said. That perspective is great. I think, I didn't even think about it from that lens. If I had, it may have snuck its way onto my list. It's very close to being on my list.
Yeah.
I think at the start of this whole process, I would have put it on my list because it is an iconic 80s song.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're making that list of the top songs of the decade, this probably makes it just because it's tied to the movie. And The Breakfast Club is that iconic 80s movie, and this is the iconic song from the iconic it kept falling as I listened. I wasn't really interested in it as much musically. I think, but hearing your perspective about the idea of the closing of one chapter and the beginning of another, and thinking about that from the Breakfast Club perspective of these students moving on from their experience, that I think what you just said is really powerful, and I see why this song would be your number two. Help just like transition, because I think it speaks to another experience that most people have of you're moving on. You're like, okay, will you forget about me? Like if we pass each other by in 10 years, will you know my name? Will you?
It kind of hits on everyone's biggest insecurity, right?
Yeah.
Which is becoming obscure and being forgettable,
Mm-hmm.
And wanting to leave a legacy.
Yeah. And so I think, now I'm kind of kicking myself. I'm like, there's great meaning to these lyrics, and it's iconic. Why didn't I include it on my list? Yeah, as I was listening to it, wasn't memorable to me, but I must not have been listening well enough.
But I think that's one of the other things with that song is that on different listens, it's going to elicit different sort of synapses in you, right? Mm-hmm. Like one time you're going to listen to it and it's very joyful. And then you may listen to it and it does maybe sound a little bit more melancholy. And then you'll listen to it and it's fun. And then you'll listen to it and maybe you're thinking about the lyrics a little bit more. And so I think it takes sometimes multiple listens for a song that has sort of that double meaning. Mm-hmm. You have to listen to it more than once, I think, to kind of get the full scope of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I really enjoy The Breakfast Club as a movie.
Yeah,
it's
a very good movie.
Even today, I was rewatching the closing scene with this song and thinking it is a perfect song for this, like for the tone of what's happening in the end, where they're all driving away from this day. And so great choice, number two. Mm-hmm. Great choice.
Right. Thank you. And here we are. We've made it to our number one.
We've made it.
Yeah, my number one I knew would be my number one before I started this podcast. So I'm interested to hear what your number one is and why it's your number one.
I had the exact same thing. As soon as I knew this song was a 1985 song, this is number one.
Oh, I wonder if it's the same.
I wonder if it is. I have a sneaking suspicion it might be. Well, if it's not, great. But if it is, great. Yeah, this is an iconic 80s song. My number one is Take on Me by a-ha.
My number one is Take on Me by a-ha.
That's right.
And
it is. Yeah,
it wasn't close, to be honest with you.
It wasn't. No. Same. We both had the exact same reaction, it sounds like. Once you know this is an 85 song, this is it.
I had not considered doing this as an episode, but I may, after 1989, do the top 10 of the entire decade. And this might be number one.
Really?
This might be my number one for that episode. Spoiler alert if I end up doing that. Because, that's like, you go first, and then this might take a few minutes. Listeners, bear with us, because it sounds like, this might take a few minutes here for us to really go.
This will be a conversation. We'll see if we're out fanboying our love for Whitney Houston here. So this song, the reason, I tried to pinpoint a couple reasons why this was such a clear number one for me. So I've probably used this word a lot in this podcast episode, but like everything about this song to me is iconic. It is the 80s in a nutshell. This song is so like, the way I just tried to describe it to my wife when I was telling her about, I said, Take on Me is number one. It's not close.
What did she say to that?
She's like, yeah, great song. It's a great. He's not as big of a music fan as I am, but it's
Yeah.
like everyone sort of knows this song once you hear it. Like even if you don't know, like
Yep.
immediately once you hear the synth line to start, da 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 da, you know it.
That's
It's
all it takes.
there's no mistaking it.
That's all it
Like
takes.
that's number one song material. Is if like you've heard it like I've heard it said like okay an earworm like you judge an earworm by how quickly when the song comes on do you know what song it is.
Yep.
Like Wannabe,
Yeah.
you know it immediately. And I
Yep.
think Take on Me is up there too with that synth line. Da, 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 da. It's like I know it immediately and I love it. It's so catchy, so fun. Um, the the falsetto is like iconic. I mean,
It's
the high notes that lead singer achieves. I don't know if it's been matched in a pop
it
song
it might
by
be the
another.
best note, the best singular note in music
Yeah,
history.
I love some Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, like
Yeah.
whistle notes, like what they can achieve. But I also just love this guy, like some of those ones at the end where he goes just so high, and it seems so effortless even. I'm like, that is all. It's awesome. It stands out
Yeah.
from most other songs just because of that.
I think that
Um,
note, the note in the chorus, the "I'll be gone in a day," the falsetto there is probably the most horribly sung note
oh my
ever,
word. Yeah.
ever.
You can you sing this karaoke? I guess you could try.
Yeah,
But like
and I've heard people try it, and it obviously it never ends well,
like
and that's
it's
okay.
yeah. I like let's leave this to aha and just leave it the specialness of it there.
Has Trevor, has there ever been such a catchier, more popular, and more well-known song that people don't know the words of? Like, like
Maybe.
all everyone knows is "Take on Me, Take Me On." You know, that's
Yeah.
pretty like people. A lot of people don't know the words in the verses. You know, the
Yeah.
talking away. Like
I
a lot
don't
of people
know
don't.
what I'm
Yeah,
yeah.
but a lot of people don't know that. But they once it gets to the "Take on Me," like
Yeah, yeah, you know it.
and I bet the general public doesn't know the second verse starts with "Needless to say," like,
Yeah, yeah. I think we do
and they
because
don't
we've listened to
care.
the songs, but
Yeah,
yeah,
but has there ever been a song where there are less words known in the song that's this popular? "Take on me, take me on." That's it.
yeah,
That's all people
yeah,
know.
yeah.
And yet,
Maybe a song in a different language, but for an
yeah,
English song, I think you're probably right. It's just
like the way this is sung, it's almost like it's in a different language. Like the verses,
that
like
it's so I think just another piece of this that I love is I think it's an iconic music video. I
I
don't
was
know how
just gonna
much.
mention, we have to
Okay,
mention the music video.
I don't know how much like that factors into like the overall like ranking of the song, but I can for this one, it certainly does.
Yes,
Like of 80s music videos, it's a great concept. It's so well done, so memorable to me. Of like if I had to name a few 80s music videos, obviously I'm going Michael Jackson. I'm going to Take on Me pretty quick.
I was just gonna say, I think Michael Jackson aside, it's probably the best, the coolest, and the most well-known music
Mhm.
video from the '80s. That's aside from
Yeah.
Thriller, Beat It, and Billie Jean,
Mhm.
which I think are all
Yeah.
probably more
He's
popular.
yeah, he's par excellence. He's just in a different league.
Yeah, but I think that outside of that, like, is there this is probably number one for music videos, and I don't always think it contributes, but in this case, it has to. Just the
Yeah,
how
it's part.
different it
Yeah,
was, just how
I think
creative it was.
yeah, it's part of the legacy of the song. It
Yeah.
absolutely is, and it deserves to be.
And I
So,
know that's what first drew me in as a kid, was like, oh
mm,
wow, how cool is this? Like this is super different. Like it's a drawing and sketch. And then you hear this, like when you put the two together, I don't know that there's a better marriage of video and song where both
mm,
of them are 10 out of 10. Like you'll get some where the
yeah,
video carries the song, and then you get others obviously where the song carries the video. This one is kind of that perfect balance of like they're both amazing standalone. They're both 10 out of 10 to me. You
yeah,
put them
yeah,
together and
yeah,
it's just that perfect
yeah,
marriage.
yeah.
Like,
It is the yeah. You're so right. It's the perfect music video for this song. The like you're being drawn into a different world, a cartoon, like a draw. cartoon world, I can almost call it. Like it's
Yeah.
like in black and white, where it's like there's elements of like surrealism, and like she's being pulled into the newspaper, but it fits the
Right. Right.
song so well.
Yeah, I really
Uh,
think that if there was some sort of scale, like if you were to, say between 0 and 20, and it's, you get 10, up to 10 for the video, up to 10 for the song. To me, this one is a 20 out of 20. Like the video's a 10. Whereas like I think there's other ones, like I'll say it right now, Thriller is a 10 out of 10 video. It's
mhm.
maybe an 8 out of 10 song.
Yeah.
So it's going
Mhm.
to finish out like an 18. Billie Jean is
Mhm.
probably, it's a 10 out of 10 song. The video is maybe 9, so maybe that one's the closest. To me,
Yeah.
Take on Me is 10 on both sides. And I don't know that I can think of any other song that's a 20 out of 20 on the video to song scale. I don't know
So
that
good.
there's another one.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe if we thought about it for hours, but
Right. Like there are some
it's so good.
great, like, I mean, even modern, like Britney Spears has some great music videos and some great songs, but I don't know that, well, like Toxic, 10 out of 10 video.
Yeah.
I don't know if the song is 10 out of 10, like
Yep.
people would
Yep.
say like NSYNC, It's Gonna Be Me with the puppets, maybe is a 10
Hmm.
out of 10 music video. Maybe the song is a 7, but to me, Take on Me is a 10 and a 10. And I don't
Yeah.
know that because I can't think of another song that has that, like, I honestly think that if I do number one for the entire decade, that it's hard to beat this. This is probably the strongest of all of my number ones so far, which is crazy because my number ones have been Careless Whisper, Billie Jean, I Ran by Flock of Seagulls, Centerfold,
Yeah.
and something
Yeah.
in 1980 that is not as good as this. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Man.
I absolutely love
Yeah.
this song.
I love all those songs too. And yeah, you're hard pressed. So like I like yeah. I mean what more can you say? I think just the fact that this is also a one hit wonder. I mean,
Right.
they don't have another. I mean, name another Aha song.
I used to know one, but I don't remember the title anymore because I don't listen to it.
Yeah, it's just
And I'm
it's
pretty
like
sure I only knew it because it was the song that came out after Take on Me.
yeah, and it's like this is a one hit. They're a one hit wonder, at least to my mind.
Yeah, they
Other people
are.
might correct me otherwise, but like so for their one song should be this
to be
one.
to be this amazing. Yeah.
It's a great one. Uh, so
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know what I mean. New wave synth pop maybe on the way out, but at
Yeah.
least for a
This, I
little bit
mean,
of time.
what a way to go out if this is as good as it gets there. This is with the end of that sort of genre. What a way to go out. Like
Yeah,
with an absolute Hall of Famer
yeah,
of a song.
yeah. With your other lists, was it so easy, or was this the easiest decision you've made so far?
This
That
this
was
was
your number
this
one.
this was the easiest decision I've made so far. As far
Hmm.
as well, and I would also say that this was probably the biggest drop off from a number one to a number two that I've had. Like
Hmm.
this was number one with a bullet, and I didn't have to think about it. Like it was like, all right, Take on Me, and I need 9 more. Like,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
this was never changing for me. This was
yeah,
not going to waver.
yeah. I almost I I think I went through this list, and as soon as I knew it was an 85 song, like I said, that was number one. I almost
Yeah,
didn't listen to it. Like I was listening to a lot of 85 songs over the last couple of weeks, and I wasn't even listening to Take On Me because it was just an assumption. I know this
yeah,
song, I
yeah.
love it, and I listened to it again, and I'm like, okay, yep, that's exactly it.
This was
So
why I was so surprised by 1985 because I always know this song in 1985, and so before I even started this podcast, I thought to myself, 85 is going to be one of the stronger years because of Take on Me. And then when I saw the rest, I went, okay, I was misled because I thought because the number one was so strong that the year itself would be, and then I realized that no, it just has the biggest discrepancy between number one
mm,
and anything else,
yeah,
which was kind of a little bit alarming to me because I just didn't have that expectation going into it.
hmm
But I knew, again, it's the only year where before I ever started this podcast, I went, okay, 1985,
number one.
Take on Me. I don't have to think about that one. There's no debate. So that's just, and I don't see that happening again for a while, if at all, for me on
Yeah,
this podcast. Like even into the 90s, into the 2000s, I don't know that there's going to be that much of a disparity between 1 and 2.
Yeah. Well,
And I don't know if that's
yeah.
the year or if that's the song.
It could be both. I was thinking that too. It could be both, a little bit of both. But thank you, AHA, for saving 1985 as a year.
Yes.
At least it can be kind of funny if at the end of the 80s and you have all your top 10 songs of the decade, and it's like, all right, the worst year had the best song.
Had the best song. Yeah.
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 So
awesome, man. Well, I mean, that's our list. Let's do some honorable mentions.
yeah,
I'll go first.
first.
We'll flip it around. No, we'll flip it around because I
Okay.
only have a couple because they were mentioned. So I had Broken Wings
Okay.
by Miss Smith. I had St. Elmo's Fire. And then the two that I have, one is just ridiculous. And I don't know how this song wouldn't be considered like one of the worst of the 80s. But it's Rock Me Amadeus by Falco,
geez, yeah.
which like
yeah.
it's not it's a ridiculous song. It's really not good, but it's also good. Like it's the definition of a guilty pleasure. Like it's just fun to do the Amadeus, rock me. Like that's just fun.
Yeah.
So it's actually pretty well known. So I included it in my honorable mentions. And then the other one that like I could never place what year this song was. And I remember I heard it a lot growing up, and my mom would definitely play this song a lot, but I had no idea where it was until I started researching for this year. Is Rhythm of the Night by DeBarge. Which like I had no idea where this was year wise. Never knew.
Yeah.
But it turns out it was 1985. And probably could have made my list over Walking on Sunshine, but like Walking on Sunshine to me, the edge again was like the longevity and the staying power of the song.
For sure,
I think put it over the top. But Rhythm of the Night is like a really fun song. It's funny because also Conga by Miami Sound Machine is another one from this year. But like just that fun sort of Latin vibe that was really obviously taking off. But like Rhythm of the Night is just a really fun song to sing. For the beat of the rhythm of the night, like just a fun song, and really like that one. So that would have been probably number 11. So
okay.
Really like that song.
Yeah. Man, I was surprised by a couple songs like Rhythm of the Night. Like, oh yeah, that is a great track.
Yeah.
So that was up high for me. A couple like quirky ones. So there's a musical called Chess by the guys from ABBA called there's a song called One Night in Bangkok that was around. So
wait, is that the One Night in Bangkok and the world's your
oyster? That's exactly it.
Yep, definitely know that. I think that's by his name.
Murphy, like Head or something.
Yeah. Head. So I know. Yeah, he had like Head is in his name. It's like a weird name.
Murray Head.
Murray Head. Yeah. That sounds a lot of fun. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's just so different. I mean, it's about chess, and it's a musical song, so but it's fun. It's a fun, quirky one that I enjoy. That I debated that on the top 10 just because it's different.
Yep.
What About Love by Heart? Really good ballad.
Trevor. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of Heart coming up on the next few episodes.
Okay.
Yes, and What About Love is love that song absolutely.
So I also had Conga up there, number 12. It's just infectious. I mean, you can't. I mean, even the song says like, even if you don't know how to dance, let the music move your feet.
Yep.
Yeah, I could like. I may not be the greatest dancer, but man, I will dance to that. It was,
yep. Oh yeah.
The announcing of Gloria Estefan into the world and Miami Sound Machine, so good. And then another guilty pleasure of mine that I started out putting on the list but couldn't justify it in the end. I am a big Laura Branigan fan of Gloria and Self Control fame.
Yes,
she had an album out this year. Biggest song from that album was called Spanish Eddie, and really good track. But it's like my third or fourth favorite Laura song.
Yeah,
interesting. It's an interesting song. The lyrics are actually fairly unique about an actual guy named Spanish Eddie working with gangs in the city and trying to bring reconciliation between people. So it's a neat track, but in the end, I didn't like it enough, and I'd liked We Built This City a little bit more.
Sure.
So, but those were then. Yeah, I mean, I one of the songs that like listened to the most in my life is Center Field by John Fogerty,
Yeah,
which is this year, I think. But uh, it's
it's a good song. Yeah,
as a sports fan, it has a sort of like soft spot in my heart for
yeah,
the Americana of it all, the baseball and Casey at the bat and whatnot, but just not quite up to snuff.
yeah. I would agree. Like it's good song, but yeah, not going to crack any top tens. That type of song. So yeah, those are good. One Night at Bangkok. Yeah, now it's stuck in my head.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it happens, man. It happens.
Yeah, no, great choice. I mean that's what always happens. After I record an episode, the next 45 minutes usually is me like cycling through different songs that are stuck in my head. So that's where that is. But we made it. We crossed the finish line and even threw you guys some honorable mentions. So this has been the most interesting, episode so far as far as crossovers. We had 3, all in the top 5 and our number ones.
And all, I think if I'm right, all 3 of them were the same number.
5, 4, and 1. Yeah. So that has not happened before, but I do think, that is a byproduct of how kind of top heavy, we've been mentioning ad nauseum that the year is. And so not surprised that it happened with a year like this. There's going to be some years where that happens, where there's just a pretty cut and dry, top few songs. And so, won't be the last time, but it was the first time. So we'll keep that in mind. Yeah, so we'll just wrap up here. Let anything else that that you want to say. The floor is yours for a minute here, and then we'll kind of get going.
Well, Scott, I'm honored that I was your guest for the worst year.
Yes, somebody had to do it.
It had to fall to someone. Hey, might as well be me. I have no problem with it. And hopefully, maybe the worst year. Hopefully, not the worst podcast episode. So, hopefully, people didn't find my voice too grating or anything like that. No, I love this. I love talking music with other people who know music. And like you've said on other podcasts, just getting to reminisce about these songs, go back into memory lane and that track, remember that one. And on my list, discovering a couple songs that wouldn't have made my list, like Easy Lover, that just climbed for me. That's been a cool part of this process too. And I look forward to hearing all the rest of the 1980s episodes and beyond. And I'll feel a special point of pride if Take On Me gets the number 1 spot in the decade. I'll wait with bated breath to see if that happens.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's arguably, I'll say arguably, but the worst year so far, and possibly of the 80s. Like, as I sort of take my preliminary looks at, like, I usually am like about 2 years ahead. So I'll, I have a long list like for 86, and I'm starting my 87 list, and like they're both looking stronger, I would say, than 85. But so there's definitely a chance that this ends up being the worst. But either way, like it's been a great episode. I mean, there were so many great songs that we talked about. Still a joy to cover. If this is the worst, honestly, like that's not bad. Like if the worst has Take On Me, and I got 2 Madonna songs in here, and Don't You Forget About Me, like I'm totally fine with that. And we've got Prince and Talking Heads, and like totally fine if that's the worst year.
It goes to show how good 80s music is generally.
Yeah, like this won't be the worst year total of this podcast, because like I mean, I'm gonna stop this before the 2020s, obviously, but there'll be there's going to be years that are worse than this, so I'm not worried about that at all. But thank you again, man. Really appreciate your time. If you're listening to this, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed another installment of Totally Rank. Continue to listen. Also, feedback is always encouraged. So if you disagree with Take On Me, or if you have thoughts about some of these other songs, please by all means let me know. If I got something wrong, if Trevor got something wrong.
Yeah, people may love 1985. Some of you out there might think
Bowling for Soup made a whole song about this year. So clearly it struck a chord with someone. But this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate it. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, Place to Be Nation. And we will see you in 1986.